Hey everyone, this is Tom here, and today we're going to do something a little different. What's a little different is that I am not streaming, I'm not simply recording this, I am actually streaming this live. So, if you want to drop a message, you want to watch, you want to say hi, that sort of stuff. I've never done this, so I'm going to try to keep up. My art desk is a little ways from my computer desk, but please bear with me. So, let's get right into things, shall we? So, there we go. So in looking at this, what we have here is we have paper. We have the normal sort of drawing paper that I tend to use, and this is from Pentalic. It's a nature sketchbook, 11 by 8.5 inches, acid-free, 25% cotton, etc. paper. It's good. It's fun. It takes ink fairly well. One of the issues I have is that it's not as thick as perhaps I would like for sometimes the amount of ink I have on the page, and that causes welling and it causes the page to lift and to bunch, etc. This is some expensive paper that was handmade in Quebec by, I don't know, somebody, but it is an incredibly textured paper. It's not nearly as smooth, and it tends to take ink very well. The difference between how it takes ink and how the other paper takes ink is this page tends to absorb it deeper. Well, this one, it tends to sit on the surface, so when I lift more of the ink. So if I'm using a lifting technique, I tend to get more color depth out of this one. So let's just draw something. Let's get right on in there. I don't know what I'm drawing today, but we'll figure that out as we go. So let's get some colors. So let's start with, what are you? You're an aqua. I like aqua. You're green. Yeah, green's okay. You are a turquoise. So I typically use Bombay Indian ink, or India ink, excuse me. I just like it. I got it at the Art Shack in town in Moncton, New Brunswick. You can check out their site at www.artshack.com or .ca. I'm not sure which. Either way, they don't pay me to say that. Their stuff is actually good. I could buy it online, but I like to support local, and you should too, because local businesses are the foundations of people's lives, I guess, where larger businesses tend to be in it simply to mass produce for the money. Obviously, there's a price differential sometimes. Sometimes you got to go with the soulless corporation. But, other times, if you can, support local. All right, so we're going to draw something here. I like dragons and fairies, things like that. Big fan of them. So we're going to shake the ink a little before we use it. So this is a glass pen. This is it does not hold ink in it. It is literally like a glass quill. You dip it, you draw with it, you carry on with your day. Very easy to clean, very easy to maintain. There's other things I do use, such as toilet paper. Yep, that's right, toilet paper. Because if you've watched any of my other videos, you'll see when I put a lot of ink down, I will then lift it to make a gradient. That is one way to do it. There are many different ways to do it. If anybody tells you you're doing art wrong, they're wrong, because there's no wrong way to do art. Art is literally an expression of self. Anyone that tells you what art is full of crap. So I guess because I just told you what it was, I too am full of crap. So, anyhow, moving along beyond that, let's draw some stuff. So, and welcome Andy and Craig. So, let's see here now. Let's get some doodling going on here. Let's draw like this. And I don't know if it's really showing up in the camera terribly well, but this does have a very different sort of texture than the on the paper I normally use, which is a lot smoother. So let's get this down here. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a righteous mess. Because frankly, if I'm not making a mess, I'm probably not doing it right for me. My parents would tell you as a child, I was not the cleanest child at all. But, c'est la vie. So now we're just going to pull the green ink out and spread it a little thinner before it hits into the darker ink. And the reason we do that is so that way the ink that's sitting up along the actual quote-unquote drawn line will take more time to soak into the page, and thus will be a darker line after we do the lift. See, now we're just going to sort of mix this together gently. And by gently, I mean we're just going to smash the hell out of it. We will gently smash the hell out of it. There we go. And I didn't put quite enough ink for that to meet up there, but that's fine. It doesn't need to be perfect. This is not a CAD drawing. It does not support a building or a bridge. If it did, I'd wonder what drugs you were on. Alright. Okay. So, one thing about this paper is that it does absorb ink a lot faster than the cheaper paper. So if I do push down here and just try to lift, you'll see that it still retains a lot of the color depth, which is really good. On the thinner paper, a lighter weight, what tends to happen is you lift all of the ink and you don't end up with as much color. So in this, we'll actually be able to use a lot of different inks like grass green and whatnot to sort of layer over it for the brighter spots. Like that. There we go. Now we're not going to let that sit real long because it's gonna soak right on in there. But just to show you, see, it tints it without completely destroying it. So we still get the blue, we still get some of the darker green, then we get the lighter green along there too. And I do apologize if the coloring isn't great on this Facebook page share. I will be posting the entire recorded thing in my Patreon later. If you want to watch it there, it may be a better coloration. So we got what looks like an eyeball socket, and that's cool. You know, eyeball sockets tend to have eyeballs in them though, so I'll have to get on that in a minute. We'll let that dry a little first. We'll work further on down the page. I find with blues and greens, I tend to make more sharky looking dragon creatures, pointier noses. I find it just lends itself to that more aquatic sort of thing. So we'll just sort of drag this out like that. And we'll just ink or doodle with the dropper directly. Because on this sort of page, it's easy to do that. There we go. Now, we used that blue, what's this here? Teal. Let's throw some teal in there. That blue we used as a turquoise. We're going to throw some teal on here. That. Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to build a solid blue base we're going to lighten up after. We're going to put some greens and some highlights, I guess. That sounds about right. We're just going to make it up as we go. This isn't a huge planned affair. And my art usually isn't. I do it because I enjoy it. I hope you enjoy it too. Because if you're not having it fun, you're probably doing it wrong. That's true for a lot of things. So anyways, moving along, let's get this in here. Sort of doodle it in. Now see, we do have a bit of a welling here. It's a lot thicker. So one thing I could do, sponge. It's exciting sponge. Soak a little bit of that. I'll just bring it on to party over here. There we go. Maybe a little bit over here. Now that's going to be a whole lot lighter than the other stuff when I do the lift, but that's fine. It's okay. Try to just keep it snout shaped a little bit. There. Set that there. Try that lift now. You can already see how it's soaking in differently and giving a different sort of gradient. And you know what? We took so long, it's actually not really going to lift a whole lot. So we're going to keep all that wonderful color texture and all that depth in it. There we go. Beat the heck out of it. All right. So now we have sort of a snout. We have sort of an eyeball shape, or eyeball socket shape. And that's dandy. And if we wanted to continue on using these sweet teals and greens, we could. But that would make the whole thing look, to me, rather samey. So we're not going to do that. No. I'm getting a phone call. One moment, please. Oh, there, phone call went away. And it is unplugged for the time being. There we go. There's only one person that calls me on that telephone, aside from scammers, and they don't like being recorded, so they can go away. So, moving along. Purple. Oh, excuse me, violet. It's violet, not purple. Because I don't own a purple. I own various shades of violet. What else we got here? We have red violet as well. All right, let's just throw down some violet. It's still a cold color, right? And the red violet is kind of the strange, nebulous stepchild threshold of color. Let's move this up. There we go. So we have that, and that's fine. We're just gonna sort of draw that like that. Kind of looks like a shoebill stork at this point. And that's fine. A lot of my stuff tends to look sort of birdy too, sort of like birds. And that's alright by me, doesn't bother me any. There we go. And there's of course a lot of different ways to do this. There is no right way. I'll say that about 1,000 times. It's just how I do it. I also recently got a water reservoir pen, which is interesting, which I haven't had a whole lot of chance to play with. And what that does is you fill it with water and you drag it over the ink, and the more you squeeze it, the more water it lets out. So you get this strange kind of watercoloring effect, which I may actually use on this. Nah, we're just gonna keep making a mess as we are. Do yourself a favor. If you're gonna paint with an eyedropper, wipe it off after you've drug it through other ink. Otherwise, you're gonna taint your ink colors. And also, when you are drawing with it, gently squeeze and don't let go of the bulbous knob until it is off the page and it has been wiped down. Otherwise, your whites will suddenly become lime green. Very exciting. Not that I have white in this right now, but you get the drift. There we go. I find singing to myself while doing this sort of work to be refreshing as well. So what we're doing right now, making a great old mess, and that's fine. And in addition to making a mess, is we're laying down the foundation of the color gradient of the violet to the red violet to give it a sort of transitional period. You can see how much the paper has gotten wet in place by the fact that it's lifting at times now when I go over it. There we go. All right, wipe that off. There we go. See, I could wait for these pools of ink to dry, but the issue with that is that I would like to continue on sometime this century, and I tend to use so much ink that it would take about that long for it to dry, and in my experience, when there's pools of ink like that, it never dries correctly. Well, to what I think is correctly. It always tends to make a mess. So now, I don't know how clearly you can see, oh, you can see it pretty clearly actually. that there is some deeper, darker violet lines in with the reddish violet that's happened. And that's nice. I like that. I ain't mad at that. Everybody want one of those, right? So anyways, what we'll do now is we'll close up the violet. The red violet is the lighter part of that gradient. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the red violet and we're going to take a different color, something that's a little crazy. Let's take some tangerine, because nothing says, oh, it's darker, deeper colors. Let's throw some tangerine in there. Nothing says awesome like what a terrible idea that is. But we're going to do it. And how we're going to do it is we're going to try not to let all of our ink go over everything. Oh, well, there we go. Now, it was still too wet, and now it's pouring over itself. So, let's go with it. This might turn out to be a horrible mess disaster, but, maybe not. And if it does, lesson learned. Our technique is improved for next time. Somebody once told me that all technique is making the same in style, where we're making the same mistake over and over and over enough till somebody recognizes that that's how you were messing something up. I always thought that was kind of funny. Not saying it's not true, but it is kind of funny. So I'm being pretty rough on the paper here with the dropper. You can probably hear the scritching noises. Typically, with the other paper, I wouldn't do that, because what would happen is it would shred the heck out of the paper. You'd end up with sharp drawn lines you can see. But this paper is already so textured that you're not really going to get a whole lot of that, which is nice. All right. Let's see what we can do about soaking up some of this other errant ink now. Nice. Whoa, wow, right through the paper towel. Look at that. Or the toilet paper, whatever. Alright. We'll smash the heck out of it. So yeah, so we get some highlights there. It's not so bad. I ain't mad at that. Not exactly what I was looking for, but c'est la vie, right? And in fact, I like that enough that I'm going to grab a little bit of this here and go back over some of these parts. Just a little bit. This paper has a lot of fibrousness to it, like cotton. So I don't know if you notice, when I put it down, the ink kind of expands through it, rather than just sitting on the page. So be really careful how I place that down. So we're using this orange as a contrasting color, because otherwise this is just going to be too dark. There. And I'm not sure exactly how this Facebook Live things work. If you guys have any questions, any comments, you want to shout any insults at me, hurl things like your Statler and Waldorf at the Muppet Show, feel free. I love those old guys. So, where we're at right now is we have this weird kind of head looking thing. We got part of a neck, we got part of the back of the head. You get a sense of motion because it's all kind of blown out the back end. You get a weird blue crest. It's kind of jarring against this. So what we're going to do is, what are we going to do? We're going to add some things. That's what we're going to do, because we can't leave well enough alone. But first we're going to make sure that that part's very wet still. So we're going to have to leave that alone for now, because if I put ink on that, it's just going to go whoop, and it's going to absorb through the whole thing, and that's going to be no good. So let's get down on this eyeball. So, anybody care what color this eyeball is? Anybody? Anybody? Well, since I assume that you're all catching up on it and you can't possibly answer at the same time, I'm going to leave that eyeball alone for just a minute. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm just going to paint the darned eyeball. So we got a lot of purple here. We got green here, which is a little strange, but it comes in with the cool color of the blue. So one thing that we haven't touched a whole lot at all is yellow. There's no yellow in this. We have yellow, we have golden yellow, we have yellow ochre, which never ever stays mixed. I mean, you know, you just got to make sure you shake it vehemently every time you use it, and that's fine. So let's do a yellow ochre wash over the socket first. That'll give us some base texturing, from which we will put the rest of it in. Because if you lift yellow ochre, it's actually very, very, very faint. And the whole thing about this right now is we just don't want it to be white. So there we go. So we're just going to give this a little wash. See, sits there. It's very solid. Boop. Oh, I forgot on this paper it actually does stay a little more golden, but that's okay. It's not quite as. It's a little less brilliant, a little less thick looking, I guess. So now we're gonna have to draw an eyeball, an actual ball shape, and we're gonna just drop ink on because I squeezed the dropper the wrong way, and that's how we're gonna roll because that's what we do. We're just gonna make sure it's a round shape. We're going to let that set for a minute so that you can't really see the difference in the yellows, but I assure you there is a difference. One thing we will do is we'll take just a drop of the tangerine. Boop. There you go. Right into the eyeball. And you can't really tell from where you're at, I don't think. Let me see if I can lift this up so you can see the coloration difference. Just get a hand under that. There we are. No, I shifted it. It had made a lovely starburst pattern, but now that's gone. Crushed like my hopes and dreams. But that's all right. So we're making new hopes and dreams. So we'll just pick that up. There we go. And welcome Tony and Jeff and Annette and everybody else who showed up. It's nice to see all you guys. Troy, you too. For those of you who don't know Tony has some very interesting live casts that he does, and I would actually recommend that you folks watch them. I find them instructional, and they're entertaining. I was supposed to go do stuff the other day, and instead I watched them for about an hour and a half, teach me all about how to make things in prison. Actually, it was super interesting, and I do heartily recommend you watch them. Now, moving beyond that, we're going to need something to pull this all together. And the question is, do we want to finish out the back and the neck? I don't think we have to, but it's still pretty damp too. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to grab some red violet and uncap that. I make sure I cap these after every usage because my cats like to hurl themselves onto my art stuff and go, hey, psh, and send it flying. And I'm not really down with that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to throw down the lighter color first. Give this thing a thicker neck. And I was thinking about a quote I had heard earlier today when I was making my coffee. And Picasso said that it took him, I'm paraphrasing, but it said it took him a while to figure out how to draw like an adult, and it took him a lifetime to figure out how to draw again like a child. And I think what he meant by that, aside from the opiate-induced, drug-addled state his mind was in, could have possibly been that it took him that long to realize he didn't need to follow standard what people told him were good or not. What he needed to do was he needed to figure out what he enjoyed doing and do it from his imagination rather than from just rotish practice. But again, I could be wrong. I'm not Picasso. Far from it. But it is an interesting thought nonetheless. Cover some of that back up. We'll give this dude some like little horns out the back. He seems to sort. Just to sort of close this up a little bit. There we are. Let's pick some of this stuff up. It's not as dark as the front with the actual dark violet, but it does give it a sense that there's a differentiation of front and back. And we could totally just run some dark violet over that. Why don't we do that? The one great thing about this paper retaining the moisture is that I can just go around the outsides again and the paper doesn't freak out and say no and just leave it ugly on top. In fact, let's use that to our advantage right now. Give him some like chin wisps because he looks like the sort that would have it. Because he's a very wispy looking dragon thing. Alright. Yeah, it's not going to lift at all. It's just going to stay that dark. That's not black. That's actually the violet over top of the red violet. There we go. We get some of that weird ethereal looking purple bits floating around. Yay, art. Okay, so next thing we're going to do here is we're going to look at this. So we're going to look at what we like and what we don't like before we continue. What I like is the sort of fiery texture difference here that's very difficult to see on camera. Let me see if I can pull this up. No, the lighting isn't just going to allow me to do it. It'll look better in the scan when it's done. You can see here that there's a little bit of leak through. Not very much though. The desk is still dry because the paper is so textured and it holds the ink very well. I like this sort of texture, but it ended up being much more red than blue, which is fine. That's a thing. It happens. Think of it like a crested dinosaur, like a triceratops. The crest might be a different color than the rest of the face. It's an armored plate. Yeah, we'll go with that, right? Okay, we're good with that. I'll buy that. So, moving along. We're going to need to make sure inks are closed because we'll make a mess otherwise. Let's get an eyeball down. That's mostly dry. We just suck some of the moisture out. I wonder why my hands end up looking like I murdered somebody all the time. It's because I touch my art a lot. I'm not like, no, I can't touch it. I will smudge the fibrous being. I'm like, nope, let me get in there. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. Anyways, 1 second here. I have coffee to fix that. There we go, coffee. It's an important part of every art project. So, set that over there. All right, don't dip your pens in your coffee. It doesn't taste good. So, looking at this now. Eyeball, right, that's where we're at. So first thing we're going to do here is we're going to make a mess. It's a great way to start. Teeny, 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 teeny drop. You're going to let the red follow the contour rather than fight it. There's no point in fighting your medium, you must work with it. That being said, you should not let your medium dictate your art. You need to dictate the art to the medium. and understand the boundaries in which it lies in. Well, it sounded like official and stuff. So that's where the eye is going to be. Now looking at that, it's all right. I'm not happy with it though. Let's get this out. The eyes I will tend to put a lot of focus on and going over and over and over and over. This is white. Remember I said about being tainted a little bit of green? Yeah, this particular bottle is very, unfortunately, very much like that. That was one of my first lessons I ever learned. Don't do that. When it comes to art, anyways. I learned other lessons long before that. Alright, so the white's very thick. And as you can see, I don't know if you can see there, but when I pull it, it actually doesn't lay flat. It actually sits kind of gross. And that's fine, because we're going to lift it anyways. Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to stain the color a different color to give it a sheen rather than just outright paint over it. The difference being, you know, when a young lady first discovers makeup, she can cake her face with it and look like a circus clown. That would be just painting over this. Or she can use it to add to her natural beauty, which would be lifting and simply staining this. Life lessons with Tom and art, or something like that. So, not too happy with the eyeball, and I can tell you why. It's because it's got no real depth to it yet. There's no hard contrast. It's all mid to light tone contrast. That being said, since we have the white out right now, one of the things we're going to do is this. What this will do is this will speckle the head frill, I want to call it that, because when we lift it, it'll leave little white spots without, yeah, see? Kind of blooms them out like little tiny flowers. You can push on a little more to get a little more of that extra white out. There you go. So, thank you, Dan. So, looking at this, that's not bad. It's not great. I'm not totally happy with it. I'm never totally happy with my art, though. That's how it goes. So, one of the things I could do is I can continue that sort of spotting down through the sort of firing back end here. I don't think that would look good, though. In so much. And I know the head just kind of explodes out into nothing. I think that's okay though. This is clearly not a live drawing of a real creature, you know, obviously, I like to think. That being said, there is some more work we're going to do to it. But it doesn't need to look real. It needs to provoke thought. It needs to have somebody go, wow, I like this bit, but you know, I really don't like this bit. And that, to me, is great. Because it means that people are engaged and it means people are looking at it. And they're not just looking at it and going, yep, that's nice. They feel actively engaged in it. And when they feel actively engaged in it, then they become as much a part of that art piece as the art is part of them, if that makes any sense. I watched my daughter for many years make her folk art. And she does a great job at it. Does she still enjoy doing it? I don't know if she still enjoys painting the same tiny little folk arty houses after 30 years. But people still feel, when they see it for the first time, they're like, wow, that's so cute, that's so neat, that's so rustic, or whatever. And there is an appreciation of that. And yeah, they buy her little wood houses, or her little wooden mittens, or little wooden hearts, or her boxes or her dolls or what have you, and that's great. And they get to take it home and they get to appreciate that. And people get to take that product home and show it to their friends so they can appreciate it. Paper art is very different in that there are so many great artists on the internet that it is a thing. If people are like, oh, well, that's kind of neat, I guess. It's not as good as this other one I saw the other day, because we have become a society that judges art not against how it makes us feel, but against what a commercial polished product that somebody else made looks like. And that is killing our artists. We need to do stuff we enjoy, and we need to let other people enjoy it with us. And I think that is an important thing. It really, truly is. Now, enough of that. Let's get back to drawing. So, I would say that eyeball is, it's done enough. So I do have black Bombay ink, and I said I almost always use just black Bombay ink when I use black, or when I use ink rather, but for black it's a little different. For black I use this stuff. It's a Herbin Pearl Noir. It's a fancy different shape bottle. It is an incredibly dark black, and it's great. I really enjoy it. It goes on very smooth. It's as far as I know, it's actually calligraphy ink that I am sloshing around on my dragons and fairies and castles and whatnot. I also have taken to drawing tattoos for people recently. People seem to be happy with that, so good for them. The one thing about this Pearl Noir is it does not mix. It will conquer whatever other ink you put it on. Hi, Darren. It's what it is. So let's not set our arm on the wet ink, because that would be bad. Let's do the eyeball first. So what we're going to do is we're just going to give it a little bit of eyeliner, a little bit of eyelash here. Just a little bit. The reason you do that is to make, I hate the term pop. It makes it pop. It's not soda, guys. It's high contrast. I don't mean to be a yuppie about that, but the amount I've heard, oh, this would make it, this pop's so great. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to complain about somebody liking my art, but it's, yeah, anyways, it is what it is. People use language to the best of their ability to describe what they want, and if pop is the word they know, I really can't fault them for it. So I take that back. That's my bad. That's my ignorance. So, what we're going to do here is we're going to start drawing some black lines over this coloration. Because it will help draw contrast to what we have done. Doo-doo-doo-doo, draw black lines. Doo-doo-doo-doo, draw black lines. So exciting all the time. Sitting here and I'm drawing black lines. It's not really exciting. But this black will also let you fill in the darker spots, anything you missed or wanted to add in, like frills. Give this guy a little bit of wispiness around his mouth. Why? Because it's fun. That's why. No other reason. There's no biological reason he'd have like little chin hairs. Like, come on. But it's fun. And I like fun. So it's getting there. And it breaks it up from being so completely smooth. Now, if you wanted to make this look more polished, you could take the black and go all around and edge all of the colored bits. And I'm going to do some of that. But I'm not going to do all of that because this looks more akin to a watercolor drawing in a lot of ways than it does an actual inked drawing, and I don't want to ruin that. I like the texture, I like the vibrancy, I like, frankly, the ridiculousness of this drawing. It comes from imagination and nowhere else. And if you think about it, imagination is one of the most powerful tools that humanity has. There are two things that made us better, if you believe in evolution, than the other monkeys about, or the other creatures about. And that's our ability to use tools and our sweating instead of panting, so we can run long distances. I don't run too many long distances anymore, let me tell you. But imagination is where the tools came from. Someone had to go, aha, I betcha, and based on their experiences, or by accident, figure it out. One of the most amazing things in the world today, to me, is paper clips, actually. Because if you look at a paper clip, someone had to figure out, first of all, that when they were cooking food over fire, first they had to figure out fire, and then they had to figure out when they were cooking food over fire, that certain types of rocks leaked certain types of char metal, basically. And over time, that developed into metallurgy. And through that metallurgy, we figured out what composites, then we figured out engineering. We figured out how to routinely, and I'm skipping a whole bunch of steps here, but we figured out how to routinely generate, things of a certain quality. Then the Industrial Revolution, that all happened. And then, so we're using literally thousands upon thousands of years of technology to harvest rock from the earth to create molten metal that is regulated, that is then forced through machines, which we had to engineer, made of a similar regulated material set, to bend in very articulate, concentrated shapes these little pieces of metal to paper clips, to put in a box of paper to ship across seas, to go to my desk so I can play with them, break them apart, and throw them in the garbage. What a waste. But we did it. We figured out how to do that. And every time I see a paperclip, I think about that. About how much brain power, how much artistry, how much engineering went into it. And now it's in the garbage because somebody broke it. Alright. So, this guy doesn't really strike me as a scale guy, or I would take the time to draw the scales in. But what I will do is I will throw a little bit of black down here just along this. Like that. I really like the top gradient. I'm very loath to darken that up because I know what, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna darken it up. I've already done the other parts. Let's just do it. It's a very thin line. One of the hardest things about drawing for me was to learn to not turn my paper at an angle when I'm doing it. Because for so many years in school we're taught, sit a certain way, turn your paper at an angle, write this way with your pencil. And to unlearn that, to keep the paper straight, is still very difficult for me at times. Because if I draw everything at an angle, it only looks right if you're sitting down looking at it at that angle. Alright, well, it's not bad. Yeah, I was going to do a thin line, but I lied. Do another line there. There was too much ink there, but I just wanted to show separation. draw with black ink, I'll usually just do line work. I don't generally mix a whole lot of dark in with it. But that's not bad. That's not bad. I'm not too mad at that. Hello, Mario. Welcome to the show. So there you have it. Sort of a watercolory, dragony thing. Excuse me. And I hope you have all enjoyed it. Now, what I'm going to say is, if you have enjoyed it, I'll throw my Patreon link in here. If you guys want to follow there, I tend to post a lot of my videos and my art there. Now, if you feel so generous as to donate whatever you want for paper, ink, etc., it would be appreciated, because unfortunately, paper and ink are free. I kind of wish they were, but they're not. You know, it's not like paper doesn't grow on trees, right? Yeah, right. So, anyways, it's easier to draw on paper than it is on trees. They get mad if you just start drawing on trees, I'd imagine. But anyways, yes. So if you enjoy it, frankly, I don't care if you donate or not. It would be nice if you did, of course. But I would rather just, if you did enjoy this, you follow the Patreon channel, and you keep up to date with the things that I'm up to. One of the projects that I'm looking at doing, actually, is a book on fairies and dragons. And I've written a little story, and it's sort of a bedtime story for kids, I guess, about fairies and dragons. And yeah. So that'll be available sometime, whenever I finish it. And the more materials I have to work with, the faster that sort of work gets done. So, I thank you all very much for your time. If you did leave comments and I didn't see them, I do apologize. As I said, I'm very new to this whole thing. This whole Facebook Live viewing. But thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you all again next time. Ciao and take care.